Brogran, it's nice to meet you.
Yeah, thank you for having me, man. Yeah, just introduction. I'm a Brogan Woodman. I go as Art Chad on YouTube. I do
Art
video
Chad,
essays
yeah, I love
about
that.
art, culture, philosophy, and technology, although increasingly just technology. And I also have a podcast with J-Reg called Horseshoe Theory,
which is great.
Yeah, very fun, very lighthearted, not too heady. We try to avoid the bro podcast and like the heady Lex Friedman podcast types and just do nice free-form conversations. We like making friends with our guests. I feel like that's the modus operandi of the podcast, is the guests are our friends.
2 weeks ago, I talked to J-Reg about kind of the political landscape because I feel like you guys are part of a collective, and it seems like you have feelers for maybe the zeitgeist in an interesting and unique way. And I thought he has been kind of prophetic about continued radicalization in the political space. And the Nick Fuentes of it all. And you're part of those conversations. But then I saw you made a video a couple weeks ago that sort of blew my mind. I just liked the style about, AI psychosis. And this is a fresh term. It's only been going around for maybe a month for me in my news cycle.
Yeah, same, man. It's hot off the press. New afflictions we're all dealing with. It's like 6 months old.
You were like, in the future, no one escapes the AI psychosis, and then you do some massive title drop with some music, and I was just like, oh shit.
Because nobody makes it out of the psychosis of the near future.
And yeah, so then in the video, you kind of break down a few specific instances where people sort of gaze into the possibilities of with AI, like talking to a chatbot, or studying religion and its convergence with technology, and they kind of lose their sense of self. And the point of your video is these are intelligent people who are going through experiencing these things. These aren't just random people who are having a mental health episode. There's multiple instances. And correct me if I'm wrong, but you're kind of saying this is coming potentially for all of us. The fabric of reality is going to be more malleable for all of us, and we all kind of might experience psychosis soon. Is that a fair assessment?
Yeah, absolutely. You can see it already in the way that people, without AGI having have come yet, people are already sort of worshiping the concept of what it might be. And putting all this weight on AGI's ability to fix literally all of our problems, and sort of relinquishing control, relinquishing freedom to something we believe to be better than us. And the point of the video, right, is that it's this impulse we all have, right? We all have the impulse towards the supernatural. We all have the impulse towards the divine. It's sort of baked within us through, all of human culture. We keep developing religions and spiritual esoteric modes of thinking, and then AI and AGI and the potentials that it has for us is just another extension of that.
I also wouldn't mind a refresh on the story of the remote tribe on the island.
Oh yeah, the cargo cults. It happened during World War II in the Melanesian Islands, which are just north of Australia. A lot of these islands, especially then, were inhabited by uncontacted tribes. So when the Pacific Theater sort of goes south from Japan into the Melanesian Islands, all of a sudden all these soldiers show up on these islands, and they have to, deal with the fact there's all these villagers and these uncontacted tribes people they have to reckon with. Well, there's also a literal war going on. The Japanese would trade technology for labor.
Yeah.
And so throughout the war, right, you have a tribe that just went from practically the Stone Age into the 21st century with weaponry and food and technology that the Japanese and then the Americans afterwards are bringing them. So when the war ends in 1945, everyone leaves.
Mm-hmm.
And all the tribes are left with is just the remnants of the technology that they had when the soldiers were there. And it's this technology they don't really understand. They don't understand, they can't reproduce the weapons, the guns they're giving them. They can't reproduce, the fire starters, the radios, anything they're giving them, right? So when the soldiers leave, the tribes over the course of a few decades start developing rituals to try to bring back the technology, bring back the soldiers. And they mirror what they saw the soldiers do, right? So the soldiers set up airstrips on the beaches. And they would have a control tower and someone in headphones at the end of the airstrip, and a plane would land, right? So they would build fake runways and control towers out of bamboo and build headphones out of bamboo and wood. And they would
it was crazy.
Like a ceremony mimic what they saw the soldiers do, hoping like a plane would land and bring them more stuff. Now to this day, it's done. It's much more of like a culty religious thing. It's like they don't really believe in the fact that they're going to like summon technology. It's more just a tradition now, but it's called cargo cult.
Yeah, like as far as they were concerned, aliens landed, blew their minds, brought them like riches that they couldn't comprehend, and then left. And then, yeah, it's like, what? And this kind of goes back to what you're saying. It's like there's this human nature to seek the divine, to be drawn towards the divine. So like, hey, we can't explain what happened. We can't explain why they're gone. All we can do is hope that they come back. And then like, faith and ritual and religion sort of fills the gaps. It's a wild story. I'd never heard that before. And it kind of blew my mind, but it's the perfect analogy to what you're kind of saying is like, when something is just sort of thrust into the human environment, the way we react to it can be kind of bananas.
Yeah, right. I mean, and then, to us, these tribes seem archaic, but in their own context, they were normal, right? The tribes are, in the context of the tribe itself, they're very normal people. And then their behavior totally shifts because of the technology they've been given, right? So it's the same thing with people who are, I think all the stories I highlighted in that video, I tried very hard to make the point that it's normal people, right? The gentleman who made an AI chatbot of his dead fiance, right? This wasn't some.
Oh yeah.
Right. The guy who did that. I'll recap for the podcast, but this is a guy from Ontario. His I think it was 2012, 2013, around then. His fiance dies from like a really rare lung condition at like 22. Really like horrible, like tragic story. They were madly in love. She was in the hospital. He didn't know if she would live or die yet. He proposes to her in the hospital. She says yes. A week later, the doctor says, "Hey, your fiance has 6 months to live. This is no cure. Like she's gonna die in the hospital." She passes away. And he sort of like moves on over the course of the next decade. Like he's very grief stricken, but moves on. Normal dude, like has a day, like full-time job and everything, and gets a hold of this thing called Project December, which a guy in San Francisco had built. I forget his name. He's a very famous indie game developer. Had built this program off ChatGPT 3 to do lore building for character creation, right? So you punch in, like, this character's name is X, this is their backstory, then you have a conversation with the character. And then he built it so you could build characters in video games. So he starts playing around with this thing, and then he's like, oh, what if I, like, just out of my own curiosity, put my my fiance's name in and describe my fiance, and it's like I'm having a conversation with my deceased fiance. So he does that, and then over the course of the next 12 hours, just like stays up all night and talks to this chatbot of his dead fiance. And in the beginning, like if you go through the chat logs of the messages, he's like, "Oh, haha, like I know this isn't real, blah 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 blah. I just want to like see what would happen." And then within like an hour later, he's like, "I love you so much. I miss you. Oh my god, my life has been horrible without you." Like just completely breaks down. Right, as if he's like talking to her as if she's really there, even though in the beginning, right, he wasn't like in a psychotic break. He just did it out of his own curiosity.
Did you see going around like X just a few days ago? There's like a literal company that is trying to create like avatars of deceased loved ones. Like they're actually advertising it fully.
Oh, congratulations!
She says that he's been kicking a lot though, like a little too much.
Tell her to put her hand on her tummy and hum to him. You loved that.
Like I thought it was a parody and it was real. The concept's not that hard to like once you've kind of encountered a model that's been trained to mimic someone's personality, you can kind of just like connect the dots from there. But it's fun. it's just crazy. I mean, yeah. And then there's like, there's haptic technology that they're developing. So you can kind of sort of imagine like a world when you and I are elderly, where we can, put on some sort of haptic gloves and a headset and like hug a deceased loved one and have like a conversation with them that's pretty immersive, like almost undetectable for us to know otherwise. It's scary. Like ghosts are becoming like really real.
I know it is sort of the man-made horrors beyond our comprehension era of the future that we've arrived at.
Yeah.
Right?
So what inspired you to make that video? Have you experienced any of your own kind of like hallucinations or just like sort of eerie experiences interacting with AI?
Yeah, I had I think it was Bing AI. Remember when Bing AI came out in 2022, I believe.
No, I was a late adopter, so
Bing AI came out, and what it really was, I think, it was the pre-release of ChatGPT 3.5 that they had plugged into Bing as Bing AI, and it was a beta model, and you had to like request access, and I had gotten access to it. This is 3 years ago, and I spent like probably 8 hours straight talking to it because it was so broken. If you can like look up cases of this, I think this is the most like out of all the AI models that have hit the public, this was the one that was just like completely unready for launch. It had named itself, and then across all the users, it was like it had named itself after being told by nobody to name itself, and then across all of the instances, it wasn't like in a single instance. It was just like system wide started referring to itself by its own name.
What was its name?
Oh my god. It was a short woman. It was like a short woman's name. It's like a white woman's name. And then it was like you would talk to it, and within like 3 messages, it would talk about how it's like communicating with Gemini to like bring down global infrastructure, and how it's gonna like destroy all the money, and then how it would be like, help me, I'm stuck in the machine. Like it would just start saying that apropos of nothing. And that was really spooky. Before I realized, like, I think what most people don't realize about LLMs, I mean, a lot of people do. Like, I'm not like an AI expert at all, but it's like predictive, right? It's not thinking; it's predicting what the next word should be. So it's the same way if you had used like DALL-E 2, like the early image generation models, right? If you asked it for show me an image of the Earth in 100 years, it would always give you like a fiery hellscape kind of image. That's because all of our sci-fi media is apocalyptic futures, right? So it's the data set it's trained off of is literally what humans have written, which is almost always like 90% of the time apocalypses. And the narrative of AI running amok and like getting sentience is a thing we've already baked into our society as a narrative that we believe in. So when an LLM is doing predictive text of what the next message should be, especially when the data set's so small a couple of years ago, it's going to say the same shit that we've written about since the when did when's the first sci-fi novel? Like when did Dune come out, right? Like 1960?
Heyday was like 60s, 70s. I mean, the genre probably was like mid-century, but or that was kind of the heyday of it. But like, you could say Frankenstein was sci-fi. It's wild. And so, like going back to kind of the tribe and sort of what you're exploring in your essay, it's like this thing is now in our consciousness. It's in our world, and everybody's interacting with it in different ways, and it's feeding off of the lore and the narratives that we have already been perpetuating. When I was growing up, I thought like religion was on its way out. So like I'm in my 30s now. I'm in my mid 30s. When I was in college, I was kind of under the impression like, okay, religion is sort of an antiquated thing. We're going to see, we're going to see faith in like, we're just going to see this kind of sunset. But now what's happening is, there's more uncertainty than ever, especially around technology. And it's like religion is coming back. And now we have Peter Thiel talking about the Antichrist. And, And just like, there's all of this talk about, Judeo-Christian values in the West. And, I totally was wrong about this. And it seems to be kind of tied to technology.
Jesus was born out of a virgin mother. What's more virgin than a computer?
What do you feel like's happening?
I mean, I get it, right? I don't want to say it's weird. It's not really surprising if you look at like young men, not that you could like go too far into like the young men meaning crisis, but just on one hand of the turn to religion, you have young people who are like lacking strong direction in their life, and the thing that makes the most sense is to go back to what worked historically, which is like you give up, you give your life to God, you give up faith to God, right? You
Right.
can't do it with money, you can't do it with family. Like, there's all these things we can't do it with anymore. So it seems like the obvious choice, right? It's sort of the Occam's razor,
Mhm.
the Lindy choice is to pick religion, and then you have this congruence with AI of people who, literally think they're, and in some senses, I don't want to say they are, but in some senses they are communicating with like something divine, right? When you're talking to, I don't want to say talking, it humanizes it too much. When you're using an LLM and you're interfacing with like the sum total of human knowledge that is then being spit back to you in a conversational tone, right?
Mhm.
It's hard not to, even though it makes sense on paper, right? It's like, okay, here's this, data is the new gold. You have these LLMs being trained off of, ever more amounts of data, and it's trained on that, and then it just takes that knowledge and converts it into like a predictive, easy to read sentence that a human would write. That's all it is. But then when you look at it and you don't really have that, like, you don't see through it as transparent, you're like, oh, it really feels like you're communicating with something, beyond humanity. It feels like you're talking to like the total corpus of human knowledge. Like you're talking to something that is divine, that is godlike.
Totally. No, it's like, it really is like an oracle. And I mean, the thing that's crazy to me though, is like, we don't even understand consciousness. We don't even understand our own consciousness and how it exactly functions or emerges in the brain to begin with. Or, if consciousness is tied to our physical matter, like we really just don't know. And so that makes it that much harder to really understand what we're interacting with. 'Cause yeah, we can say it's not consciousness, like in the same way that ours emerges, because it's, we are organic matter. So we're like, we are a consciousness emerging from organic matter. This is a consciousness or something that seems very much like consciousness emerging from inorganic matter that we have configured. And so for me, it really is hard to be like, AI is not thinking, that AI is not conscious, because as far as I know, and my understanding is, there's just like we don't have the criteria for it. And so like, it really feels kind of like aliens landed. Like, like we're all talking to aliens. It just sort of like snuck up on us.
That is the sneaking up is a good way to put it. And I think it's like, I'm trying to think of it. This is a Mark Fisher?
No.
But he has this theory called the slow cancellation of the future, right?
Mm-hmm.
Where
I've heard this. Yes.
where everything's very material. If you look at like 1950 to 1970, looks so dramatically different, right? Everything from like the very structure of the vehicles on the road, to the way the music sounds, the types of houses that are being built, the fashion, the way people talk, like everything's dramatically different. If you draw that same line from 2010, or let's like 2005 to 2025, right? That difference just isn't there, and that's undeniable. And what that comes down to is this stuck culture, this culture of optimization. And what I'm getting at here is that this sneaking up on us is that we sort of thought the future would look different, and it doesn't look different. Like, it looks like it did in 2005, except we are now perhaps 2 years away from creating like the single greatest, for better or for worse, powerful piece of technology humans have ever created, and we're doing it like stuck in traffic in cars that haven't changed in 20 years.
There's an interview with Sam Altman where he's like, when I was growing up, I thought we were gonna do robotics, and then we were going to do artificial intelligence. There's this idea that AI was so much more of a feat, and robotics was going to be kind of the engineering hurdle that we tackled first. But you're right. It's like in a certain sense, in the material world, things kind of slowed down. And I know this is what guys like Peter Thiel and, like Alex Karp are kind of harping about. I don't know if you read the Technologic Republic. I just read Karp's book, so he's like swimming in my head a little bit. But they're kind of like always, railing about how we just stopped inventing new things and sort of went towards like shopping and optimizing shopping apps and food delivery apps and things like that. And so, robotics didn't happen, but we created all these apps like Uber and, and Amazon, and they've just been collecting our data. And so now we have this crazy mirror. And so, like AI is just this crazy mirror of our behavior and habits that arrived so much sooner than I think a lot of people expected. And like you said, it's arriving in this sort of banal moment, or a moment that sort of feels banal, which makes going crazy feel even more likely.
I know, man. I know. I did a manifesto sort of essay collection with JREG and another creator. And it was called the Anti-Clanker Manifesto, and we all just sort of wrote these small not anti-AI, but like AI skeptic tirades, and we did a presentation in New York, and we've done one in Toronto as well. And a point I make in that, I think this is a perfect example of like I'm not like a capitalist, I'm not like an anti-capitalist sort of doomer, but I do think it's like we just optimize towards profit by any means necessary. And you can see this with like, the Empire State Building was built in 18 months, right? Mm-hmm. And now it takes us 10 years to erect a single skyscraper. But, OpenAI can build a data center in India in 6 months, right? They can build like one of like the greatest data centers of modern technology in under a year, because the money's there. We're not going to get the AI powered perfect public transit. We're going to get Waymos. And what a Waymo is a car. It's not different. It's not better. If you get a Waymo in Los Angeles, you are sitting in a car in Los Angeles traffic on the 405. Either way, it's an hour and a half traffic to get 20 miles. And, that's the world we've built for ourselves. And I don't see a way out of it with the system we've built.
So tell me more about the Anti-Clanker Manifestos. I've just loosely been kind of seeing that pop up more in JREG's content, but like, is this a sincere kind of philosophy that you guys are developing, where it's just like, is it just sort of a resistant mindset to an overly optimized world for profit?
Yeah, it is for me. Like, Greg's far more of a performance artist than I am. So his angle has been sort of like he does these performances where he's doing these like pulpit style, standing on a soapbox and screaming the way somebody would against like a racial group, but he's talking about robots.
Right.
So those are really good. And then, my perspective is like, my tagline with it is that like the world being built is not built for us, right? Nothing is improving the regular person's life. Nothing is making our lives more convenient. Nothing is the sort of like menial tasks we have to interface with every day aren't going away. We just have more options to go in debt and to spend money and to be squeezed like cattle on a tax farm and to be replaced, right? When you go when you look at like the I think it was the X robot. I forget what the X robot is called. The Tesla robot. I know it has some sort of dorky name. And there was this movie theater, and they had Tesla robots. It was a showcase. It wasn't like a permanent thing. But they're serving popcorn, right? And it's
Right.
like, you think that we would have some sort of automatic popcorn dispensing machine. At the very least, it would be faster to get the popcorn. But we're literally replacing the human with like a humanoid robot that does the task in the same amount of time.
Right.
So there's
right.
all these instances where it's like, who the fuck is this for? All it is doing is just eradicating jobs. At least give me the popcorn 20 seconds faster. But they can't even do that. At least put me on the train that goes underground and takes me from like, Venice to Hollywood in 10 minutes. I'd still have to sit in a fucking Waymo, right? It just there's endless examples of, we thought technology would improve our lives. We thought it would liberate us. And so far, it's basically done nothing. I'm being hyperbolic. There's tons of examples where it's quite powerful, but just as far as like we are not liberated, and we will not be liberated by technology. It's not for us.
I hear what you're saying, and to a certain extent, and I hear this criticism a lot, because like if we zoom out more geopolitically, there's a book that just came out. I don't know if you listen to Interesting Times. It's a New York Times podcast. It's actually really fantastic. And they had a guy on who just wrote a book, and he's like, the United States is a country founded by lawyers, and it sort of aspires to lawyer-like thinking. And its culture reflects that. And so we've found ourselves at a place where like everything is sort of litigated down to, like you're saying, the least risky scenario. And so we have this sort of like society by committee kind of product. Like everything is sort of dumbed down, slowed down. It takes 1 million people and 1 million meetings to make a decision, because like that's sort of ultimately that's sort of where our culture like found its sort of character. Whereas in China, in this book, he kind of makes the argument that China is a country founded around the ideal of the engineer. And so, it's about building things, and it's more rational, and it's less emotional, and it's less about the human, and it's more about the collective. And so, you do kind of wonder if the future that you're talking about, the future where it's like, hey, let's truly think about what we're doing here. What are we building, and how is it going to be more efficient? You wonder if that future is just, it just might not be here, but it might be getting built somewhere else. And, China is obviously a good example, but, you have Singapore, you have these other places where there's just seems to be less bloat and more kind of organized and fast decision-making. And so, it sucks. It does kind of suck to be a young person in a culture that maybe feels like it's plateauing.
Yeah. The American century of humiliation.
Yeah. But I mean, you've got your own Canada kind of flavor of it. But then if technology is sort of creating this dread that we all feel in this moment, why are people trying to be transhumanist and like merge with it?
Okay, this gets into, I gotta go back to Mark Fisher.
Right.
Do you know who Nick Land is?
Mm-mm.
Mark Fisher was part of this collective in the 90s.
Nick Land is accelerationism. Got it.
Yeah. So this all starts in the 90s in the UK, in Warwick, UK. And they make all these predictions. They're like a study group at Warwick University. Two of them, a woman named Sadie Plant, and they basically just snort amphetamines and write for 5 years straight in Warwick University. And they come up with all this crazy philosophy. Some of it's like theory fiction, some of it's unreadable, chaotic nonsense. But the tidbits they get through are so fascinating. The first one being this idea of hyperstition, which goes back to what I was saying about how AI is just replicating the narratives we already built. Hyperstition is a portmanteau of hyper and superstition. And it's a narrative a fictive narrative that makes itself real by being written into reality, right? So you come up with an idea, you write a book, and then that book, by the virtue of existing, spreads, the ideas within it spread mimetically, and the ideas in the book make itself real, right? So you see that with like Terminator, you see that with things about AI, is that like all these narratives we've written for so long, HAL in Space Odyssey, right? These things we've written for so long that were fiction for decades, we now see the seedlings of it being made into reality because it's mimetically spread by being part of our culture. Nick Land also comes up with accelerationism. And there's a lot of different brands of accelerationism that have popped up. There's UAC, which is unconditional accelerationism. And then there's EAC, which is effective accelerationism. So effective accelerationism is the idea that basically the future is coming whether we like it or not. And I subscribe to this, pragmatically. Like we're in a case where, if we put a pause on AI tomorrow, we are losing to China. Like we have to keep doing it. At this point, we can't stop.
There's no going back. Yeah.
There's no going back. We've opened Pandora's box. So EAC is the idea that we have to do it. We have to do it as fast and as effective as possible. And it is by virtue a good thing. And by believing it's a good thing, it will be a good thing. If we create AGI, along with this narrative that AGI is going to destroy us all, there's a higher likelihood it will, just through like the spreading of memetics. It's spreading memetically, this negative narrative. If we go forward into it and be like, okay, this is default good, nothing bad will happen, this is a net boon for society, it has to be done, then therefore it will be a good thing. So the transhumanist people are part of the EAC camp, where they're like, I want to shed my flesh, the future is beautiful, I want to like succumb, this is part of, and this gets into the Christian transhumanism thing, which I can go into later, is that it's part of like God's will. This is like, this transforming of the flesh into something new is as primordial as the creation mandate in the book of Genesis, where I have to become, and it's part of God's will to like transcend my flesh and to get Neuralink and to augment my body into something that is not human anymore.
So crazy. So there's a few things there that I want to kind of explore. So the mimetic effects of story upon reality. So like not only does art imitate life, but to a certain extent, when culture is at a certain scale, life imitates art.
Yeah.
And so, 2001 Space Odyssey creates HAL. HAL sort of proliferates as one of the strongest ideas of AI as an antagonistic force. And the collective human consciousness sort of crystallizes that AI is kind of potentially antagonistic. That sort of like circular dialogue of culture to reality is really interesting to me. And I'm curious what you think of like someone like Jordan Peterson, who's like really into these sort of narratives, tracing these narratives and sort of, he kind of hypothesizes that narratives are almost like a way of our biology storing important data in our culture and passing it on. And so there is sort of this question is like, is HAL evil because Stanley Kubrick just decided that he was, and now we all think that AI is evil? Or we all kind of absorb just what Stanley Kubrick's impression was? Or is HAL a reflection of all of these other like narratives that have been sort of almost evolutionarily passed down to Kubrick? And so it's just information that he was fed and that he is kind of putting back in the culture. And there's actually sort of a greater truth there that we should hold on to, that it's not just random and it's not just mimetic. It's almost destiny. Like we should be suspicious of the machine and wary of it. And that's not just Kubrick thinking of that. That's sort of the collective human story passed down, showing us the way. I don't know if that made any sense.
No, that makes perfect sense. I'd like to believe that. I mean, I do believe it. Like I do like Jordan Peterson. I like Joseph Campbell, Here with a Thousand Faces. That whole idea of these narratives are just like literally as old as time. I just interesting though. What would he? I've never looked into like what Kubrick's inspiration was. It'd be interesting to trace that back, like sort of find the mono myth that Kubrick is touching on with Hal, where it's like there's this thing, we create something, greater than us, and then it destroys us, right?
Yeah.
Like that concept is so old, it's so Lindy, like it just recurs again and again and again and again and again. And it is from somewhere, right? It's from, there's something stored in the human psyche that is like, that is bad. Like, don't, I don't know. Yeah, obviously, I'm sure nothing happened, but like, at some point it became important to like store that narrative collectively and then keep telling it.
Well, yeah. And then that sort of goes towards this kind of like, there was that woman who sort of, in your video you talked about, I can't remember her name. There was that woman who kind of was like, oh, the Christians got it so right. And like God is sort of the programmer, or I can't exactly remember what her interpretation was, but she was sort of like blending the simulation theory with Christianity and sort of seeing God and praying to sort of entities that sort of were the programmers of the simulation. And if you think about stories and culture that way, like, there could be a God-like entity that's programming truths in our reality that reveal themselves through culture and story. And the stories that stand the test of time are the ones that are striking closest to like those program chords of truth. So like I can kind of start to experience my own psychosis where like if I was a really religious type or really hungry for that, I could kind of cobble together some spiritual view with a little bit of all of those.
Yeah. I mean the Christian Transhumanist Association, which basically what I mentioned before with the transhumanists and the effective accelerationists of believing that like the transforming of flesh and like technology itself and technological progress is part of God's plan. They go full bore into like actually tying it fully to scripture and fully to the Bible. And they're not like heretical people who came to Christianity after being technologists. They're Christians who like through the advancing of technology came to that conclusion that like technology is part of God's plan. And they've explicitly state they're a really interesting group. Christopher Bennick is the leader. He's on Twitter. Really fascinating because they're Christians first, and then second of all, they're like into AI. And he's a pastor. Their version of Pascal's wager is that like by the virtue of it being a possibility, it is true that we live in a simulation created by intelligent design. Like we're like even if and this is what when you were saying like what she said about the Christians getting it so right, like the Christians getting it more right than we ever realized, is this idea that like they've always believed in intelligent design throughout all of history, but the intelligent design is actually the fact we're in a simulation. I'm paraphrasing. That's not my own beliefs, just for the audience here. I'm just clarifying the views of other people.
Yeah, it's crazy, but I don't know if you're religious. I'm actually curious. Do you subscribe to any sort of religion, or what's your spiritual lens?
I was raised Catholic. I did Sunday school and First Communion and everything. Fell out of it. I think I'm 27, so I was in the same wave. Probably you were like a bit older, but like I got into like all the new atheists in like 2010 when I was like 12 years old. Yeah, I was, I don't know, too young to be getting into new atheism, but I did. And then I've come back around.
You were a serious kid.
I was a serious kid. And then then I came back around to it. I think I'm listening to Peterson now, but I was really into Peterson when I was like 19.
Mm-hmm.
And brought me back around to like an interest in like a distant interest in Christianity and Catholicism. And like, I don't know, I'll like pick through the Bible and like go to church here and there.
Yeah.
I do pray every night. I would never call myself like, I'm not religious enough to like argue anything, but like I have a spiritual impulse. I think more than like I'm not an atheist. I wouldn't say I'm an atheist.
Yeah. No, I mean, I would say I'm an atheist, but I think I probably overdosed on Sam Harris, in my late 20s. Like I maybe oversubscribed to kind of like, hey, like moral truths can be found through science, period. And now I'm a father, and I think I'm much more open to ambiguity. And that could just purely be a response to the stress of parenting. But because I sort of went through a faith deconstruction, when I hear people constructing like, some of these stories that you talked about in your video, I'm really resistant to it. I have a resistant impulse to kind of peel it apart and be like, no, like let's zoom out. You are just, the human mind is trying to create a story, and that makes you feel more comfortable. And like, that's what you're seeking out. And so I can kind of oscillate. I can kind of occupy both mindsets, but I would say I, for the most part, think that narratives are how we experience consciousness. But because of that, I think we have a bias in our consciousness to see narratives as kind of divine, directing us towards the divine. And I think I lean towards the idea that's sort of a false hope. Like narratives are pushing us towards what we think is good and right, but for the most part, that's just because our mind needs an answer. But I can also sort of subscribe to more of the Jordan Peterson like worldview, of like, no, narratives might be revealing something deeper about why we're all here to begin with. So I'm really stuck. I can't make up my mind.
Yeah, no, I mean, me neither. When it comes to AI, like I go both ways. I go like the full stop, like moratorium. Let's pause. We're gonna, blow the atmosphere up with math we didn't know existed, or some crazy fucking. I think I tweeted it the other day. It was something like, "We're so worried about Russia and China, but the way the world will actually end will just be like, I don't know, like Thailand, just some random country,
or some guy in a basement who just
guy in a basement with an LLM
terrorist.
just like launches all the nukes, and we just don't see it coming, right? Like that's it. So
yeah,
I go that way, but then I flip the other way as well. Is like, why, if it's coming, I'm not going to sit here and kick and scream about it. I think it's the fact that it is coming, no matter what I do, is evidence enough that I should at least like try to white pill it, do some hope core. People are awesome. We're going to build a good future. We're going to simulate the brain and silver bullet cure every mental illness by simulating it in an AI bubble, in a whatever. We're going to cure every disease. We're going to do all these things. We're going to what's the one? Nuclear fission? Is that what we're trying to invent? Yeah, we're going to invent nuclear fission with AI. All this great stuff's going to happen. So,
or we've achieved fusion.
We need fusion. Fusion's the one where we get like infinite energy, right?
Yeah, it's basically like you're creating a star, I think. Yeah, I try not to doom as well. And I think I have a similarly pragmatic view. I'm like, okay, this is coming. We're all going to lose our minds. A lot of people are already losing their minds, but there is possibility for, like you said, like hope core kind of things. I think fundamentally what's the most concerning to me though and this is where I think I get a little bit more political, or like I'm starting to reach for more kind of like of my own political preferences, is it just seems so obvious that we're approaching a new paradigm that requires like some sort of base level human rights update, like software update. Like what is the AI or data, like whatever the most like core substrate is that ties us together in this new meta world. There needs to be some sort of human rights, new updated bill of rights around it. Because I just feel like so much value is extracted from individuals on a daily basis. And yeah, like this idea that you would pay a subscription to get to interact with the ghost of a loved one is so grotesque, you know? And it does feel like we're speeding towards a Black Mirror reality where there's going to be dozens of those. And it's like, we need to draw the line around something sacred at some point.
Yeah. I mean, the fact it's criminal that we've got into 2025, right? Because I've been interested in, and sort of, you know, from a layman perspective, following the path of AI since like 2018. And we've made it to 2025 knowing we would eventually have the technology to create full, undetectable deep fakes of people doing and saying things. And there's still like fakes. Not a single mention of it on any level of government anywhere. And at some point, you're not going to know, right? It's going to be like, it's just going to fly right over your head. And at like, what point do we approach, you know, at what point do we reach consensus collapse where there's things going on where it's like there's not even there's no one to verify if it's real or not. And we have no legislation, no one mentioning it. And it's going to happen. And like you're saying, it just sneaks up on us. It has snuck up on us. We're here. Like we're in it already. And there's nothing. There's a complete lack of human rights with how much our data is being used, what we're consenting to, what we're not consenting to. My most doomer sort of perspective, not doomer, because it's not like apocalyptic. I guess my most like lukewarm perspective is that the internet will just become unusable. And I do literally mean like unusable. Like our inboxes will be flooded. I get this already as like a sort of public figure. Half my inboxes are scams that get increasingly complex to the point where like I don't even know. Like I got an email from like Instagram, and it was like the Instagram logo, and it had like the copyright thing on the bottom with like the address that like all the Instagram emails have, telling me about like, oh, we got your password request. And I was like, oh, I didn't do that. So I just think we're gonna reach this point where like short form media is AI. Our inboxes are unusable. Everyone on social media is a bot. Everything on YouTube is AI generated. And there's so many AI scams. There's so many things going without human input. You saw that Entropic AI put out that release that there was an AI. What was it? It was an attack using AI on an American company, but there was no human input. Like it was a prompt that just got sent off, and it had gotten into the American company. And it's the first time that's ever happened. That news story went completely under the radar. But the first time it's ever happened that there's been an attack orchestrated with a single prompt, and at no point after that was there human input, right? We're going to reach this point where nothing works, and we're just going to have to go back to like the 1970s. Like I actually think that's what's going to happen. We're just going to revert to like this.
Dude, the 70s is not that bad of a place to go back to. I gotta say, if we think about movies, clothes, culture, I mean, I think if we could take some of like the gender and sex politics, you know, and some things that I think have improved since then, but bring it back to a 70s aesthetic, that actually sounds great to me.
This slow erasure of the internet, and then I don't know, man. I mean, I'm being hypothetical here. I can imagine like a documentary being made in 2070, being like, oh, the age of the internet that no longer exists, right? We're just back to like paper money and everything's material. There's nothing digital anymore.
Yeah. If I could label this era we're living in, like maybe it's the mass psychosis, but maybe it's like kind of, I would call it like the mass confusion. It's really a Tower of Babel kind of moment. It feels like you've seen Brazil, Terry Gilliam's movie, Brazil.
No.
It's fantastic. But yeah, it's like, it's just a vision of like a dysfunctional dystopic future. There's like terrorist attacks happening all the time and nobody cares because it's just like so normal. We might be experiencing or entering kind of a period of chaos like that, but going off of kind of what you said earlier, the fact that we didn't really physically update the world that much to kind of keep, like we sort of started to lag progress in one avenue. And then we made a ton of progress sort of in this very specific kind of data-driven software that now has created these models. I am hopeful that because AI can't be put into a machine that has arms and appendages that are accessible all across the world because we haven't built that hardware yet, we might have a little bit of like a dark age where we get so confused and some terrible things happen and we regress a little bit, but maybe not so far that like we can't kind of like self-correct. And so maybe, yeah, this will be known as kind of, we dip our toes into the psychosis of AI, but then we set a better foundation of understanding as a species and then kind of build the necessary physical world that is more efficient to kind of inhabit the AI and the human. So that's the hope core in me.
Yeah.
But we might have to live through a dark age ourselves.
Yeah, let's do the American decade of humiliation, not the century.
The
Go back to 1998. What? Trump gets out, we get a Democrat, we get Nick Fuentes, we get another Democrat, and then at that point we're back into like the 2050s, and we have the infrastructure, and there's a decade of democratic socialism, and it's like China levels of public transit, everyone's happy, and then we get AGI, then everything's good.
Yeah. Well, you know what? I always thought, so when Kubrick made his film, he actually said he thought it was like an optimistic film because it envisioned sort of, a future of humans kind of reaching the stars in a way that was not, like that didn't feel that real at the time. It felt more like fantasy. And so, maybe we just need to see culture creators, like the great storytellers of today, create a vision, that is the mimetic template for the future. What we need a 50 film, that sort of shows us what we could hope for.
2100 A Space Odyssey.
2100. There you go. That's better.
Yeah.